Yeah, happy New Year, everyone. Welcome to Hackney Council's Planning Subcommittee, the first of this calendar year. My name is Councillor Steve Race, and I'll be chairing this evening's meeting. This meeting will be recorded and is being live streamed on YouTube. Councillors taking part in voting this evening are present here in the chamber. If any councillors are joining the meeting remotely, they do so as an observer, and they will not be able to participate in the discussion and the vote for any planning application on the agenda. I welcome any local residents or members of the press who are here to participate or to observe this evening's proceedings. And for those participating in the meeting remotely via Google Meet, the virtual meeting technology does have a chat function. However, please only use this to raise IT-related issues. As chair of this subcommittee, I won't be monitoring it. In the event of an internet outage, we'll adjourn the meeting and then come back and start again. I want to first introduce the members of the planning subcommittee who are here present this evening. So we have the Vice Chair, Councillor Jessica Webb. We have Councillor Sarah Young. We've got Councillor Lee Laudotte-Scott, Councillor Michael Desmond, and Councillor John Narcross. And welcome to those of you who are attending this evening. Next, I will introduce the council officers present at this meeting. Some of you present in the room will have contacted the governance officer in advance of this evening's meeting to register to speak. Objectors to the applications and representatives of the applicant are also present in the room. Before we continue, I just want to briefly outline how this meeting will proceed. We'll hear each planning application in turn, summarised by the planning officer. I will then hear a 5-minute statement from the objectors, followed by a 5-minute statement from the applicant. If there's more than one speaker from an applicant or an objector, they'll have to agree amongst themselves beforehand how they will split that 5-minute speaking time. Members of the planning subcommittee will then be free to ask questions of the planning officer, objectors, or the applicant. It's my role as chair of the planning subcommittee to ensure that members have all the information they need to make a decision, that objectors and applicants have the opportunity to set out their case, and that the meeting runs properly. We'll not be taking any contributions from the floor. This is a meeting in public, not a public meeting. You must have given notice to the governance officer, Gareth, before the meeting, and the deadline for registering to speak was 4 p.m. yesterday, and the speakers list is now closed. Subcommittee members are not representing either their wards or their political parties. The subcommittee will make its decisions on the basis of site visits they've made, what they've read in the published application report, and of course what we hear this evening. We must make any decision on an application in accordance with the Council's development plan, including the Council's local plan LP33 and the London Plan 2021, unless relevant material planning considerations indicate otherwise. Can I emphasise that subcommittee members should not take into account or discuss non-material planning matters, and when taking a decision, members should not have allowed themselves to prejudge any application prior to this meeting. Similarly, if a member has any interest relating to an application in the meeting agenda, they must consider whether that interest ought to be disclosed, and where appropriate, they must withdraw from the meeting while that application is discussed and voted upon. When we've finished our deliberations on the planning application on the agenda, we'll vote on the recommendation as set out in the published application report. When that decision is made, that is normally the end of the matter for this subcommittee. The applicant may appeal our decision, objectors may seek legal redress. I advise you to seek legal advice in either case. Finally, depending on how this meeting this evening progresses, we'll take a short break at 8 p.m. We'll now move to the published meeting agenda, beginning with apologies for absence.
Chair, we have two apologies, Councillor Potter and Councillor Joseph, and I believe Councillor Sadek is running late. I'm not sure about Councillor Levy, though perhaps he'll be joining us shortly.
Okay, thank you very much. Declarations of interest from committee members. Councillor Young.
Hi, I'm going to stand down for the Newton Close item because I'm employed by Anchor.
Okay, great, thank you. So you're going to recuse yourself for the first substantive item. Thank you, Councillor Young. Any others? No. Agenda item 3, consider any proposals or questions referred to the subcommittee by the Council's monitoring officer.
Madam Chair.
Great, thank you. Minutes of the previous meeting. We have the minutes for the 14th of November subcommittee pre-app meeting to approve. Any comments before we approve? Is the committee happy to note those and approve those minutes? Agreed. Thank you very much. Great. In that case, we can whip on to first substantive item, number 5, the Newton Close. Thank you, Councillor Young. Oh.
I do apologise. I've only done this about 40 or 50 times. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to draw your attention firstly to the addendum report. This makes several small changes to the main report, including to relevant conditions and some of the Section 106 heads of terms. As some of you may remember, this application has previously been reported to Planning Subcommittee, at which time a resolution to grant planning permission was taken. However, since then, as a result of new GLA guidance pertaining to climate change matters, additional information has been provided in support of the application through the process of negotiating the Section 106 legal agreement. The additional documentation doesn't change the proposal in any substantive way, but provides additional information relating to sustainability and climate change considerations. The proposal is for the redevelopment of this site, which is adjacent to the Woodbury Down estate, to provide 76 units of 1 and 2 bed accommodation for older persons. The development would provide 100% affordable housing at a mix of 53% London affordable rent, which is 40 units, and 47% shared ownership. As was picked up at the previous planning subcommittee, just to clarify that although the social rent accommodation is being provided at London affordable rent, returning residents will have the opportunity to return on their existing social rent terms, and that is being written into the Section 106 agreement. The substance of a proposal, the physical properties of the site and its surroundings, and the development plan context, other than the guidance published by the GLA, remain unchanged from the time of the previous resolution. And the development has not changed in terms of land use, housing mix and tenure, heights massing, materiality, relationship to neighbouring properties, or in respect of any other material planning considerations. So the guidance that the additional information which has been submitted relates to energy and carbon emissions calculation sheets and whole life carbon and circular economy statements. They don't change the proposal, but do demonstrate that it achieves exemplar carbon savings, 82% for residential and 71% for the non-residential. So for this reason, the recommendation on the papers is to carry forward the previous resolution to grant, subject to conditions, completion of the legal agreement and referral to the Mayor of London.
Great, thank you, Catherine. We have no one objecting to this application. We do have some supporters here. Looking over there, yep, great. We have Nick Hodgkin from Anchor, and we have Elizabeth from Pegasus Group, is that right? Yep. You've got 5 minutes between the two of you. Are you both using the time? You're going first, or are you taking the whole 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Great, okay, perfect. Off you go. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. Nick and I have been working on this development project with Hackney's officers since pre-application engagement in January 2020, and we were delighted to receive a resolution to grant planning permission from this committee in April last year. As Catherine has explained, the only reason we're here again today is because of the need to submit further information in response to requests from the GLA, which we need in order to be able to proceed to their stage 2 referral process and allow the planning permission to be released. Catherine's explained what that information relates to, so I won't repeat that. We believe we've worked with your officers to secure the optimum solution for this site, which will deliver 76 affordable homes for older people in a carefully considered new building, which will complement the wider regeneration occurring in the vicinity. We hope that you will agree and continue to support this project, as we're very much looking forward to delivering these high quality, affordable specialist homes in the near future. And we're both happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. All right, I just want to check with the committee because it's slightly more complicated than we usually do. Is everyone clear on what we're doing this evening? So we resolved to support this application as the committee resolved to support the application last April. So I had a full committee session on that, on the materiality, the concepts of that. As a result of it going to the GLA, there was some more substantive sort of reports on, as set out here, that have come in. And therefore, as a result of that, it's got to come back here So I think if we can focus on the new information rather than the entire sort of application, then that would be helpful, I think, given that we've already resolved to support it. It'd be a bit perverse to sort of reverse on that for no reason when there are no changes to the application. But what we can do is give the new reports a run through, see whether you've got any questions on those. Is the committee sort of happy with that? Supportive? Yeah, Councillor Desmond?
I'm broadly supportive, but I know the original building quite well because I represented this area between 1990 and 1998. And because I wasn't on the committee on the 27th of April, although we don't want to have a discussion of that application, I would like there to be some clarification relating to why we're demolishing the original building. For example, when was that original building built? How old is it? Because the carbon footprint of building this much more significant building will be very significant, so it does affect the current report. So do any of you know when the original building was built?
Yes, 1976 it was constructed.
Okay, I mean, it's fairly modern, but this new application represents a very significant addition, and you know, I'm broadly in support, but I just wanted clarification. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Councillor Desmond. Other committee members, questions? I can kick off. I was interested to read about the air source heat pumps, and just interested to know from a sort of factual basis why we use individual air source heat pumps. I think this has come up before from Councillor Webb. Rather than, is this a good way of doing air source heat pumps? No, this is sort of an emerging, it's probably not an emerging technology now, but it's possibly sort of newer in buildings of this mass and scale. So it'd just be interested to know sort of why you've chosen that. What's the benefit of that, and are they recyclable afterwards when they're finished?
So I'm certainly no M&E expert, but we use communal air source heat pumps, and they are the way that Anchor are building our portfolio to respond to sustainability issues across the country. They're a much more carbon neutral way than utilising gas, and a much more economical way to run for individuals who move into the home rather than running just purely on electricity.
Councillor Webb? Yep.
Thank you, Chair. I see that from the police there's an objection, but there's the condition requiring the secured by design accreditation. So at what point does that come in? Is that right? Can we get it? You look confused.
Sorry, the police didn't raise an objection. They raised an objection subject to
Yes.
that condition being
Yes.
put on. And
Yes.
so I hope, apologies if I.
That's right. So no objection, sorry, no objection on condition that there is one. At what point does that come in? I just think that it's so important in builds like this. As you know, as councillors, we have so many problems with entry phones, entry systems. So can you just kind of run through, particularly perhaps it's to the applicant, just the security of entrance, please?
So we first met the secure by design officer, I believe, before the application was originally submitted, to get their advice. We have relations like you know, many local RPs do. So their design comments have all been incorporated into into the design of the building. We have no residential accommodation on the ground floor. We have progressive privacy throughout the building, and we've taken on board all of their recommendations from our first initial designs to ensure the safety of a vulnerable client group is protected.
Thank you. Any questions from other members? Otherwise, this is a relatively easy one. Yeah, Councillor Webb.
Different topic. Every time when we used to do tour buildings, we talked about Swifts. Do we not ask for Swift boxes anymore? Sorry. Are they? Do we have Swift boxes? I saw the back check.
It usually is a condition as standards these days.
Is it? You got some Swift?
Apologies. I've been concentrating on the sustainability, well, biodiversity. I'm pretty sure that the condition relating to the ecological report, the recommendations of the ecological report required Swift bricks. And so by conforming with the recommendations, Swift bricks have to be incorporated into the design. But if you wish, I'm more than happy to check the report and make sure that is the case. And if not, I can introduce.
Any other questions? We're happy with the sustainability report, life cycle, all of that. Okay, in that case, let me get my back. Thank you so much. In that case, we should move to a vote. And let me just find the voting one. Expected. So the planning permission be granted subject to the following conditions and Ferrelton there, is that right? Gareth?
Back in front of me, if that's the wording of the recommendation. I tend to go on the front.
Is that right?
sheet. 1 second.
Go on. Yeah, legal agreement as well. Okay, fine.
Yes, grant planning permission subject to conditions completion. Yeah.
Great, thank you very much. So let's do it again. Grant planning permission subject to conditions and completion of an section 106 legal agreement and referral to the Mayor of London. All those in favour, raise your hands. Thank you, and that's unanimous. Okay, thank you very much. Great, thank you. Thank you for bringing that back.
Okay. That's quick.
Yeah. Okay, so we move on to item 6, which is the Bays Malka Girls' School at Alcombe Road, and we have the planning case officer, team leader, case officer James and Gareth, who's leading up on this. Is that right? James? Great. Okay, fantastic.
Good evening, Chair and members. This is a application for a ground floor single story rear extension at Bays Malka Girls' School at 93 Alcombe Road. The extension itself will be located in the bottom left corner of the map. The site you can see here, the infield area just on the proposed map there. The site that is to be infilled is a small area at the back, which is currently used primarily for storage. There's 2 storage units there. One's used as a library, and it's also used to access the staff storage room, which you can just see there externally, but there are internal entrances. It's just located between the rear elevation of the school building and also the rear boundary wall with a bunch of neighbouring properties. Should be noticed that this site is obviously educational use, surrounded by residential, and it's not within a conservation area. Again, you can see the site just from above there. These are some site photos here. Again, you can see that on the left there you have one of the storage units, which is again in use as a library. You have some benches and a storage unit, and also the access to the staff room. The actual extension itself will be used, and this is the boundary wall here that runs along the site, which adjoins the residential units at the rear. And you can see the residential units just there beyond. The principle of the extension is broadly supported. We're happy to support the extension to educational facilities to provide improved standard of accommodation. You can see here from the existing and proposed plans, the actual extension will comprise a enlarged classroom. One of the existing classrooms will simply be moved to a new location and be placed slightly larger, together with 2 storage spaces, a kitchenette for the staff room, and a small toilet area for the staff room, and where the existing bathrooms will also be enlarged to improve the standard of accommodation. The applicant has noted in their design access statement that this proposal is not for additional students on the site. This is merely to improve the existing standard of accommodation for the existing students. The extension will be a single story. There has been some ambiguity over the height of the extension, but it will be a single story. You can see here the first floor plans clearly show that, with a few roof lights in the roof to provide light to the bathroom, kitchenette, and the classroom. Again, you can see here sort of dimensions of it. It's worth noting that, as you notice from the addendum, the plans have been modified recently because there was a discrepancy with the actual existing plans, which did not show the variation in the height of the boundary wall. Revised plans have been provided by the applicant, which do show this now. You can see there's a slight change, a drop in height along the boundary. But as you can see, the existing and proposed elevations are the same for this from the southern elevation, because the extension will not extend beyond the height. So from this perspective, there will be no change in the dwelling in the school. And again, from these elevations, you can see the side on the site images we just looked at. You can see that the extension again is contained within the height of the boundary wall, and it will be lower than the staff room, which currently is slightly higher than most of the boundary wall. From a design perspective, there aren't particularly any significant concerns. You can see how this is the only part of the site that will be visible, as most of it will be again surrounded by the boundary wall and be set down from the boundary wall, and it will be set behind the existing school building. The part that will be visible will be a small extension that will be we've attached conditions in order to ensure that it will be sympathetic and will match the character of the existing house, of the existing school. So the white render on the ground floor elevation, or the ground floor level of the school, will match the proposed render on the extension itself. And because again the extension is enclosed on all sides and set down from the height of the boundary wall, we don't anticipate any significant neighbouring amenity impacts upon neighbouring amenity, especially in regards to light and outlook, again because of the position of this extension. So based upon this and on balance, we would recommend this application for approval. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. We have 2 objectors on this item. We have Titus Davis and Mary Walker. Yeah, you've got 5 minutes between the 2 of you. Are you sharing or sharing? And who's going first? Right, and you're Titus? Right, thank you.
Yeah, I'm Titus Davies. I live at 79 Windus Road, which is a first floor flat immediately behind the eastern end of the proposed extension to the school. I'm going to make some very specific points about the south boundary wall and the impact of the proposed extension regarding its visibility from the south and the potential for increased light and noise pollution. I understand that the plans have been changed to reflect the fact that the wall is in 2 heights, and I take it on trust that the building would be below the lower level of the wall. However, even as the proposed building is lower than the lower section of the wall, its roof and roof lights will be visible from the flats on the first floor, i.e. my flat and others, because we are looking down on it from above. In addition, the roof lights on the proposed building will protrude above the height of the roof, even when closed, and when open, which the design report states they will be for ventilation, will be clearly visible from the south. The officer's report dismissed suggestions that noise and light pollution could be increased by the new building. It seems clear to me that the presence of a classroom immediately behind the boundary wall, especially with roof lights, will increase the intrusion of noise and light to the flats. I point out that the boundary wall is only 4.3 metres from the back wall of the flats on Windus Road. They have extremely short gardens, and so therefore anything happening immediately behind that wall will impact people, I think, on both the ground and first floors quite significantly. And I remind the committee that because all of the buildings behind this part of the boundary wall are flats, there are households on both the ground and first floors, meaning that the impact of noise and light is increased compared to if they were houses. What I would like to urgently request is that a planning officer visit the Windus Road properties abutting the south boundary wall to see the situation for themselves before making a final decision.
Good evening. I'm Mary Walker and I live at 65 Windus Road in a ground floor flat situated at the western end of the existing boundary wall, which is approximately 4.3 metres from my back windows. My garden wall, which is 1.67 metres high, backs onto the section of the boundary wall behind which is the single-storey block marked as staff room on the existing and previously proposed ground floor plans submitted in August 2022. This is the first time this evening that we have seen these plans in relation to this whole question of the difference in the height of the wall. So firstly, I've got two main focus. Firstly, the height of the section of the boundary wall at the end of my garden, which is approximately 46 centimetres higher than the height of the rest of the boundary wall. This is the discrepancy which we believe is significant because in the sustainability statement within your papers, the roof of the proposed development is to be aligned with the height of the existing staff room. So we question whether in fact how this is going to be accommodated. Secondly, I have serious concerns about the potential risk to the integrity of the existing boundary wall arising from this proposed development. The wall is noted in the plans as 3.2 metres high. It is built of a single skin of bricks and is severely bowed in places. The application does not include an assessment detailing if excavation and construction can be carried out in such close proximity without causing a catastrophic collapse of the wall. There is no plan of action if this were to occur. Furthermore, there is no evidence that account has been taken of the potential risk of serious injury to users either of the school or of the occupants of neighbouring properties. In their report, case officers have dismissed these concerns as a civil matter between the school and the neighbouring dwellings. I contend that the basis on which the subcommittee is being recommended to grant permission is undermined by absence of accurate and key information. Obviously, tonight we have been witness to stuff being produced. I therefore request the decision is deferred pending receipt by the committee of accurate details of the heights of the existing boundary wall and staff room and an independent structural survey of the boundary wall. Photographs of the boundary wall were sent to James Clark Tuesday the 10th, illustrating both the different heights and the state of the brickwork, and I trust you've seen them. I believe this to be a reasonable request for deferment to ensure that the planning subcommittee is provided with accurate information on which to make a decision. Thank you, Chair.
Great, thank you very much. And then supporting, we have Tom Stebbing.
Hello, yeah, I'm Tom Stebbing. I'm from John Stebbing Architects. We've been asked by the school, Bayes Malka, to prepare this modest proposal for an extension to the rear of one of their existing buildings. The drawings show the proposed extension will sit wholly within the existing boundary walls and below the coping of the existing boundary walls. The discrepancy that was picked up on the drawings relates to the fact that the existing staff room and its boundary wall are higher than the rest of the wall. That's been corrected, but the actual proposal has remained the same in its scale and height, as the proposal has always been to sit the building within the confines of the structure itself. I'm not sure what more I can add. It's an extremely modest proposal, but quite important to the school. And you'll see from the drawings that the additional accommodation will be useful to the school, and hopefully we can have an agreed approval without any further delay. The application was submitted in August. Thanks very much.
Great, thank you very much. I might just kick off if the committee doesn't mind on this one. Just could we have a bit more clarity from officers on the light pollution argument that was put forward by the objectors and these lights that are on the roof of the building, please?
Of course, Chair. The roof plans are here. You can see that there are 5 roof lights proposed, and these will be openable roof lights. The primary reason why these are considered not to have a significant impact or a significantly greater impact than what's already been established is, first of all, you have windows on the southern elevation directly across from the properties. These are already more likely to have a far more significant impact than the roof lights will. The roof lights are relatively small compared to these windows, and therefore any sort of impact from these roof lights will not be substantial relative to these windows. Furthermore, these uses as a school will only mean that it's used in certain times of the day, and therefore impact in the evenings is probably less likely. This will be less likely compared to, say, a residential extension, which would have more light throughout the course of the day. And we actually, we haven't got, let me see if I can find the satellite photos here. You can see from the satellite photos that on nearby residential dwellings, there are already numerous examples of roof lights, similar to what we proposed on the school, which are in closer proximity to residential windows than the proposed.
So can I just confirm they are essentially windows in the roof where light can escape from the building? They're not lights on the roof?
Oh, they're just windows on the roof where light potentially could leak out from.
Okay, thank you. Committee members. Yeah, Councillor Young.
I might not be understanding the pictures very well, so would you mind going back to the one that shows the elevation?
Which one? The southern elevation with the
one
boundary
that showed
wall?
that one. Yep, thank you. So that big grey block at the bottom, what is that?
On the western elevation, so that is essentially showing the sort of I bring it up here. If you look on the sort of left-hand side of the site, that's what that's showing. So that's the existing staff room that's already there. So that will be no change on that side of the building.
And so if you just go back to that other picture again, sorry. Yeah, so this one here. So the bottom picture, the grey rectangle there, that is the ground floor of the new.
No, that's the existing staff room on the western elevation.
Okay, so in fact, there are windows in that presumably at the moment.
Sorry?
There are windows in that at the moment or not?
Yes, there are, yes, in the existing staff room.
Okay. So just to pick up on the objectors' concerns about the proposed, the height. If I was looking across from a first floor flat in Windus Road, would I see a higher rooftop than I see now after the building is built?
You would be able to see increased height in the rooftop, yes, and most likely the roof lights as well. It's noted that this is sort of would form part of the existing building, though. So you'd already be able to see the rear elevation and the rear windows as well. So it would be visible, but it wouldn't increase the massing of the actual boundary wall, and therefore there'd be no sort of loss of light or outlook on the neighbouring dwellings.
And the residents are concerned that I think the request that planning officers come and visit, it comes from a concern that perhaps it's not really possible to understand the impact without coming and actually having a look. What's your response to that?
We have viewed the site from the other side on the school side, and we have viewed the photos that were provided by the objectors, which sort of show the impact. And yeah, we can confirm that it will be visible, but we don't consider that the sort of impact from the roof lights would be significant, especially when considered the established urban context and the sort of established use of the surrounding area.
Okay, I just got one more. One of the objectors' concerns is about increased noise and disturbance. You said in your original outline that there is not going to be an increase in the number of pupils attending the school, or indeed the number of staff. Is there anything else you'd say in response to the concerns about increased noise? I understand that obviously during building works there would be increased disturbance, but once the school has the extension built.
So during the actual construction works, we have a construction management plan in place that should help to sort of mitigate the sort of traffic impacts and noise impacts as well, and that will be approved by condition. In regards to sort of the actual use of the site, obviously there's been a lot of concern about the sort of overdevelopment of the site. We already have a lot of portable buildings. This one will not be, sorry, portable temporary structures. This one will not be a temporary structure. This will be permanent. It's noted, it should be worth noting that a lot of those temporary structures on site are well, temporary. There's sort of plan permission for the two-story element, which is, let's see, here you can see in the top right corner as a plan permission that I believe expires in 2024, and another structure on site has a plan permission which expires in 2023. So 23, yes, yeah. So there are obviously the standard sort of concerns about this sort of intensification of use on the site and therefore potential noise impact that may arise from that. However, sort of this is offset by the fact that most of these sort of new units will, which not necessarily related to this application, but this actual extension will not be for an increased capacity of students. And again, similar with these roof lights, they will be openable and there's potential for noise pollution from that, but there's already windows that face towards these properties already, which are already potential source of noise pollution. So it won't be considered to be a significant intensification of what's already established, impacted in the current situation.
And if residents were concerned that the increased capacity of the building would lead to increased use, perhaps outside school hours, how would that be mitigated? So if residents were concerned that the increased capacity of the building would increase its use perhaps outside school hours or at some other point in the day, so at the moment, presumably it's only used between, I don't know, 9 AM and 4:30 PM. Perhaps residents are concerned that this increased capacity means that the building will then be used for other purposes outside school hours, or there's some other reason why there'd be increased noise in the school. Presumably that would require additional applications for the building to be used in the
Gareth, did
evenings.
you want to comment on that? Sorry.
Sorry, can I nip in there? Do you mind
Yeah.
showing the layout plan, James? Is that okay? So the proposed accommodation or additional accommodation shows an additional classroom, a kitchenette and toilet facilities. So given the nature of the additional accommodation provided, we don't anticipate there to be any kind of extracurricular activities as a result of the development.
James, can I just come back to the height? Sorry, are we now in a position where the height of the application building of the application is the same as the current height? Is that right, or is it slightly different?
Can you repeat that? Sorry.
Is the height of the new the proposed building the same height as the building it's replacing?
Yeah, the height of the extension is,
Yeah.
it's below the height of the existing boundary wall.
Sorry, the existing boundary wall.
Yeah, so it's below the height of the existing boundary wall, and it's below the height of the existing staff room, which is higher than the existing boundary wall. So, I'm not sure
So we thought beforehand it was going to be above the boundary wall, but now it's not going to be above the boundary wall.
Well, the intention was always to have it below the height of the boundary wall. The difference was with the discrepancy in the plans. This wasn't quite shown because there is an inconsistency in the height. If you can look at the slides here, you can see that where the staff room is, the height of the boundary wall does increase. That wasn't shown in the original set of plans. So that rightfully there was confusion about that point, about what the position of it was. But now we have the amendments, we can confirm that, yeah, they definitely will be below the height of the boundary wall at this point.
Thank you. Other questions? Yeah, Councillor Desmond.
This is a very dense urban area. Could I clarify with the architects, this extension is not going to lead to any of the porta cabins being no longer used? So the porta cabins are staying there and the extension is an addition. Is there adequate play facilities for the young women who go to this school with this extension?
As you can see on the photos, and as described by the officer, this area is not really part of the play space provision. The play area itself is a sort of multicoloured surfaced area. This is more for storage and as a way to get in and out of the staff room at the moment. So it's not a part of the play area itself. No, it wouldn't.
I want to ask a question about the garden wall, which is the boundary wall, is that right? It's the same? Okay. So to what extent is it a planning matter for us around the integrity of that wall? I mean, we assume that developers and applicants will be able to kind of construct their building without walls falling over, but can you just set out for us thinking around that? That'd be great.
Yeah, so as part of usually it's part of the party wall agreement that they agree to sort of, because obviously in the case, I'll just show it in the floor plans. You can see from the floor plans here, there's two separate layers of wall. There is the wall for the actual extension itself, which is shown in dark, and then there is just below that, there is the actual boundary wall, which is shown in a sort of lighter color. This is what boundary wall is, and the plans show it will be retained, so there'll be should be no modifications, and the plans don't show no modifications to the boundary wall. Now, in terms of the actual structural integrity of the boundary wall itself, this is beyond the scope of what we would normally consider under planning. It's the assumption is that any works needed or required will be made good, and that will be ensured by way of the party wall agreement between the residents and the school itself. So the actual structural integrity of the wall is not necessarily a planning issue, planning concern. It's more the assumption is that the school will take the necessary measures to ensure that the wall is made good, and that there are no structural concerns or issues that arise from the construction of the extension.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Webb?
Thank you, Chair. I mean, the concern for light, to be disturbed by light coming from the windows in the roof, really, because they're not lights, would only come when it's dark. What assurance can we have that lights, it's a bad thing when lights are left on at night time when there's no activity in the building, and that will cause the disturbance to the neighbours. Is there anything that we can do, like say, ask for motion light bulbs, or an assurance from the school that they will actually turn it off lights when they're not in the building?
A condition to that effect would not meet the statutory test because it's not relevant or necessary to make the development acceptable in planning terms. I don't know whether the agent might be able to say a few words on behalf of the school. Obviously, the price of electricity is pretty high at the moment, so there is their own incentive there. But
previously, we've by condition for school projects, we've been required to submit a operational management plan, and in that there's a section about lighting and timers and that kind of thing. And if the committee are minded to approve the proposal, we would agree to a condition that required a short and simple operational management plan to make sure that happened.
That sounds good to me if we're able to do that. Officers, yeah, great, thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Narcos?
Yes, just a quick one. So what is the material of the roof finished with? Because I think I was looking in this talk in the section about kind of drainage, that one of the conditions was one of a number of possible drainage options be considered, one of which being a living roof. Is the roof, is that potentially one that could be used on the roof, or is the roof just sort of a metal finish, or what's the material?
In the event of approval, a condition will be attached requiring the materials to match the existing. So most likely it will be the sort of, the architect might be in a better position to answer this, but most likely it will be the same material as the existing roof on the staff room. It should be noted that one of the two drainage conditions require a SUDS feature to be included in the proposal. Now, one of those SUDS features could be a green roof, but again, this would be down to the applicant when they come to discharge the condition, whether or not they would want to pursue something of that option.
Thank you. Yeah, Councillor Young?
This is not a planning matter, but I'm just a bit concerned that the residents might not be aware that a party wall agreement will be needed if they're concerned about that back wall, and just want to be sure that they've had advice on that.
As the obviously not necessarily my area, but I understand that any sort of extension or works that go along a boundary wall, there is the prior wall, that agreement that needs to be secured between the applicant and the other neighbours would be required.
Jack Surgeon's response.
I would just like to say that the boundary wall, as far as I understand it, is not a party wall. All the properties have their own garden walls, which are abutting on that on our side. And as I understand it, the boundary wall entirely belongs to the school. So I don't think it's a party wall. However, we obviously are concerned that an assessment of its structural integrity is carried out, because if it does fall into a garden, it could, or into the school, it could seriously injure someone. And you say it's not a planning matter, but it's a very serious worry for everybody who lives extremely close to it. And so I just need to flag that up again. It belongs to the school. We're not in a position to maintain it or do anything about it because it doesn't belong to anybody in the houses, but it's very close to us, and we're worried about it being undermined by digging immediately adjacent to it for foundations and drainage. And that's why we're so keen to speak here.
Thank you. Christine, oh, sorry.
Sorry, Chair. The officer, along with the applicant, I would like to think, have gone and visited the site before this application came here tonight for determination. Also, with regards to the boundary wall, the appellant as well, not the appellant, sorry, the applicant, would be able to confirm whether or not that wall is within their boundary or whether or not it's adjoining. Is it possible that someone could clarify exactly the status of that boundary wall? Because it may be a material consideration, or it might not be if it's not within the ownership of the applicant or control of the applicant.
Just before the applicant, Graham, yeah.
Yeah, thanks. As I think all of the planners have said, we're not party wall specialists, but my understanding is it's correct. It wouldn't be a party wall because it's a boundary wall. But by the by, the structural integrity of it is really a matter for building control and building regulations rather than planning. And then any damage caused outside of that, if there was damage to your property, is a civil matter, which again is outside the remit of the planning system. So I think the committee can acknowledge a concern about it, but hopefully the confidence that can be provided is that it's dealt with by separate legislation, and there will be, there would be legal recourse if there's any issues with it, but that would all be outside the planning systems, outside the remit of the decision making here.
Thank you, Graham. Does the applicant just want to say anything about that at all, or?
I understand it to be the boundary wall to be wholly part of the school, but as the officers say, its structural stability is a building regulations matter, also a CDM matter, health and safety matter in terms of the building works, which the school would have responsibility to comply with. So it is not, I don't want to make light of it, but it's not a planning matter as far as I understand it.
Thank you. Councillor Webb?
Sorry, Chair, were we, was it going to be a green roof? I didn't quite pick up on whether or not.
Sorry, say that again.
Is it going to be a green roof? The flat roof, is it going to be a green living roof?
No, I think this is covered. Can you cover off the whether it is or is not a green roof, and why not?
Currently, it's proposed not to be a green roof, no, but there's the potential opportunity for it to be as part of the SUDS condition. So normally, as part of the SUDS condition, you have to prove some sort of sustainable urban drainage. So it could be a water butter, it could be a green roof. There's a variety of measures, but it's not required by policy to actually provide a green roof in this circumstances. So it's in its current form, no, it's not.
Would we like to encourage the use of a green roof as opposed to a hard roof, because we do that kind of thing?
I can bring the applicant.
We would be happy to comply with a condition if you separated the green roof requirement from the SUDS requirement and had two different conditions, one requiring the SUDS design to be submitted and one requiring details of a green roof. That would mean that we would have to provide the green roof as well as any extra SUDS. So I think that's probably quite a simple thing to do. We would just, the condition would require us to submit details of a green roof and SUDS, and then it would have to have a green roof.
It's worth noting that it's not a policy requirement for a green roof on this, and we wouldn't normally require it for an extension of this sort of scale or size. But it is an option for a SUDS condition if the applicant chooses it.
Just to be clear, LP33 only requires major development to have green roofs. Obviously, this extension, I believe, is about 80 square metres, so it's well below the threshold that we'd normally require such a green roof for. If the applicant can make some promises that that will be accommodated on site, then that's brilliant. That's better than what we expected. But from a policy perspective, we've got no kind of leverage to secure that.
If it was a condition, would that be enforceable, Christine? Is that so? If there was an agreement in here that it was a condition, then
Yes, it would be enforceable.
yeah. And sorry, I didn't understand the bit about separating out the suds from the green roof. Does that have any impact on anything?
No, it would just mean that, well, essentially you could, if it was required to provide a green roof, you wouldn't really need the SUDS condition because green roofs are considered to be a SUDS feature, but, yes.
Thank you. So, sorry, did you want to come in again?
I would suggest that given the visibility of the proposal and the fact that there were 14 objections to the proposal, I think the applicant would be happy to incorporate a green roof as a
Okay.
goodwill gesture and to improve its visual amenity.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah.
Having listened and understood that the concerns we have about the wall will not be party to this discussion or decision this evening, could I be directed, please, by the chair as to where this matter will now be dealt with?
So, officers, my understanding is building control, but is that the answer? Yeah. that's
Does
the
that
answer.
mean we,
So it's building control essentially.
so we as residents need to make contact with building control, is that right?
Yes, essentially. Is that right? Is that
Be a dangerous structure.
We do.
You should contact the building control. Who have on the website, there's a special
Right, and
way
it
of
is,
doing that.
sorry, Chair,
Sorry.
can I just ask, has it been established that this is a boundary wall that is owned by the school? Because this has been discussed here this evening and I haven't come away with a clear understanding of
so?
what
So I
we've
think
concluded.
I think the point is that it's not for us in planning
Okay.
committee essentially. So it's not pertinent to our decision about whether it's a boundary or a party wall. It's really for the school, the residents to work that out and potentially the building control. Natalie, was there anything you needed to?
Just to add, with the dangerous structure, if there are concerns about a structure being dangerous, they can just be reported. I can send you details after the meeting. There's a phone number and email address, and we come out within 24 hours to investigate any concerns around dangerous structures.
Sorry, can I just say that we're raising this because of the work that it is proposed will take place behind it. We are not saying it is currently dangerous. We're saying that excavation for drains, sewers and all the rest of it will potentially destabilise it.
Yeah, I think the point
That's the point,
I think the point from a planning perspective is that
Yes.
these things are perfectly feasible to be done without the wall falling over essentially. So we assume that the construction and the company or whoever's doing it will be able to do this without the wall falling over, and it should be done without the wall
Right.
falling over. So, but that then falls within building control. So, as planning, it can be done, and therefore that's where we sort of end. I'm afraid.
Thank you, Chair.
Can I just add that,
Yeah.
just to make it clear to members, that the discussion here tonight regarding this boundary wall is not part of
Yeah.
the plan matter, so therefore should not be taken into consideration when you're reaching your decision. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions? No. So, so we've got two.
Yes, Chair, just before, and obviously just before we get to the vote, I'm conscious that Councillor Sadek and Councillor Levy joined discussion and votes. Obviously, the more for the benefit of the applicant and the objectors. Obviously, Councillor Levy and Councillor Sadek will not participate in the vote.
Great. Thank you. So we have two additional conditions to be added. One on the. Sorry. Yeah. And the green roof, exactly. Right. Okay. In that case, the recommendation is to grant planning permission subject to conditions. All those in favour, raise your hands. Thank you. And that is again unanimous. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you to everyone who spoke this evening, and thank you to the officers. Sweet. Great, so welcome to Councillor Sadek and Councillor Levy, who will join us for this full item. We're on item 7, an old favourite, Portico City Learning Centre on Linscott Road. Catherine, you're leading off on this one as well.
I am indeed. Apologies, I'll just have a notification. So this site you will all be familiar with. It is a Grade 2 listed building in the council's control, which has recently been granted planning permission listed building consent for a variety of extensions, and it's to facilitate its conversion to a health centre. Quite a unique building and quite an interesting solution to the problem. The current submission is for approval of details attached to the listed building consent. These include materials, but only insofar as the brick, and an associated sample panel. You can see here it's a London stock brick, Danehill yellow, and I understand that the applicants have a sample if members wish to see it. And this is a facade sort of showing how it would appear in the round. There's also a partial discharge details attached to condition 5. Apologies for the misnumbering. These relate to windows and doors, rainwater goods and parapet coverings. There was quite a lot of information submitted, so this presentation just has a couple of, sort of illustrative details. And just to reassure members that that is not the colour that the hopper and rainwater goods will be. It will be what's known as pearl beige, which hopefully will look better than it sounds. Just to say that as set out in the addendum report, there have been 2 additional representations since the publication of the report, one from a neighbouring occupier and one from Councillor Rathbone. These relate specifically to the detail of the windows to the southern elevation and their impact in relation to privacy of neighbouring occupiers. Members will recall that there is a condition attached to the planning permission requiring the upper floor level windows to be obscure glazed and fixed to a height of 1.8 metres above ground level. There's no requirement for the stair window or the lower ground floor level windows to be obscure glazed because there was perceived to be no harm to amenity from them being transparent. So for those reasons, myself and the council's conservation officer have assessed the details and found them to be acceptable and recommend their approval.
Great, thank you very much. We have no one here to object. We have some supporters of the application. We've got York, yeah, thank you, from ADB Architecture. David Borrell sent apologies. We've got Peter Burt from LBH, sorry, yep, us. And one other person. Oh, okay, great. Welcome. Here we are. You've got 5 minutes. Are you planning to speak in support of the materials? It's the white one on the right.
Last button at the end. Okay. Yeah, apologies for that. We're principally here to answer questions tonight, any that are arising. But if we need to add anything, we will do so. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Right, so this is at least the 3rd time that we've seen this recently. So more details on this one. So essentially materials. Councillor Young.
Do we have a sample here, seeing as we've got you all here?
Bricks in the bag.
I will do my usual thing where we have material samples just for the benefit of anybody watching this meeting. Obviously, the applicant has brick samples that they are showing to the committee members.
And if you haven't seen London stock brick before, you've not lived in London.
Are they recycled, reused in London stock brick? Then you.
Great.
Normally we would have a table. I think everybody's.
Do you want to touch them? Are you happy to see them?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Obviously, this is a sort of building of historic interest in Hackney, and we're certain that this is the best that it can be and should be to maintain the rest of the building. It's all what we would want to see.
I've been assured of that of our conservation officer, and it ties in with what was intended at the time that the application was considered originally. Just to say that there is going to be a further submission with additional materials, including cladding, hard surfacing, etc., which will be also coming towards to planning subcommittee, and other additional details of the architecture and design. But well, watch this space. You'll see the
Bricks and windows
Can I
today.
ask a question?
Yeah, Councillor Young.
Why do we not see all these materials in one go?
In an ideal world, you definitely would. However, I believe there were problems with sourcing them and finalising the specifics of some of the hard surfacing materials, the coping materials and things like that. So, and some of the details relate to things like outdoor services and things like that that won't actually evolve until be finalised until a slightly later stage. So unfortunately, it is a bit disjointed. Obviously, normally these details don't come to planning subcommittee, so it's not quite so public. And I have to assure you that I don't think it's really the way the applicant would like to deal with it, because it's a lot easier and simpler and cleaner just to deal with them all in one. But unfortunately, scarcity of materials and uncertainty over how the proposal is going to evolve into granular detail mean that they are coming in drip fed, unfortunately.
And then just that point around the representations that have been put in recently. So this was around whether or not the windows should be sort of glazed in a way that you can't see out or in. And you said that this was considered at the actual application meeting. Is that right?
That's correct. As you'll no doubt remember, there was quite a significant amount of neighbour concern over the development. Hopefully this slide illustrates that the two-storey extension is in fact over lower ground and the upper ground floor level. So it is not quite as high as you would expect from a standard two-storey extension. It's going to be in use by for medical purposes, so you wouldn't get the same sort of time extent of use or the kind of nature of the, people aren't going to, the doctor's not going to sit there gazing out the window. Also, but because there was a level of concern and there could potentially be some limited overlooking from the upper floor windows, that's why the condition's been put in place, because they are the windows that would potentially result in overlooking to the neighbouring occupiers. So the condition requiring those windows to the medical consultation rooms to be glazed and obscure glazed and fixed to a height of 1.8 metres means that when you're sitting in a consulting room, you're not going to have a view of the neighbouring properties. In addition to which, you'll also be aware that there's quite a robust landscaping scheme to the southern boundary, so that will add additional protection to residents.
Thank you for that. Thank you. Any other questions? No, in that case, we'll move to a vote. The recommendation summary is to approve the details. All those in favour of the details of the bricks, raise your hands. Thank you very much. That's unanimous again. So thank you very much. Thank you to the applicants and the sponsors. And then I won't shut the meeting down because I've got other things to do. Thank you to the officers that led on that, Catherine. Right, so delegated decisions. Any comments, or are we okay to note them? Noted. Thank you very much. Great. Any other business? Nothing.
Well, it kind of is connected to the last item. Just a reminder: the next meeting is on the 1st of February.
Great. The last day of my 30s. Should anyone be interested? I know, getting old. Right. I know. Who would think? Right, that's it. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for the evening. Thanks for everyone for everything you've done, and have a good evening.